Happy Friday, everybody. Ronnie Rance, Tommy Chrysant, Sports Shorts Daily. And TK joining us over at our good friends Mike Tremonti's place, Tremonti's Meat Seafood in Baton Rouge. I'm in an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. You can join the team and be a team member. Go to lasportshall.com. Tommy and Ronnie, we are both team members of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. TK, last night, LSU college baseball season officially began in Baton Rouge because they had over 1,000 people in a ballroom at the Crown Plaza, raised over $500,000 for LSU baseball. They went up on their prices
Cool.
of tickets and tables and items, and of course, all this money. You got to pay players now. But they raised over $500,000. That's like a I don't know 200,000 more than they've ever done before. And they first pitch banquet was underway. They had Tommy White, former players. Tommy White were in the house. Ben McDonald was in the house. Brett Laxton, the hero of the '93 national championship game, was there as well. They introduced, I think it was 18. Jay Johnson said, I believe 18 new players on this team were introduced last night. And so college baseball season is underway. 2 p.m. February 13th, day game against Tommy's Milwaukee squad. So go check it out that day. Some some news and notes. Let's go around the world of sports. Tommy, first off, John Harbaugh. Then now, after spending what 19 seasons, 18 seasons, whatever it was, over there in with the Ravens, now the head coach of the Giants. The New York Giants signed him to a 5-year deal. Did they sign? I'm just glad the Falcons didn't sign Harbaugh
Yeah.
because he did visit with them, and I'm thinking, oh, great, Hall of Fame coach in the same division as the Saints, but same, in the same at least he's in the same conference now in the NFC, but at least he's not in the same division.
And effective immediately, the Giants have the best coach in their division. Okay. If you look, even though the Eagles have a Super Bowl, Harbaugh is now the best coach in the division. We'll see what he can do with Jackson Dart. I'm sure he'll attract some other pieces to the puzzle. But yeah, it didn't take Harbaugh long to have a new hat in the closet.
By the way, speaking of the Eagles, they fired their offensive coordinator. Jalen. They've had 5 different coordinators in the last 5 years. By the way, Jalen Hurts getting a lot of criticism. Although there's nothing the Eagles can do about it, they signed him to a mega contract, a couple years ago, so he's not going anywhere. But Jalen Hurts being criticized for not being able to run a lot of plays for the playbook to be deep enough for the NFL. Taking criticism for just kind of freelancing on plays. So it'll be someone else's problem. But the interesting development there because the Eagles still have enough talent and everything in place to make a run next year at a Super Bowl. This was an interesting year. The offense was the 18th or 19th worst offense. I mean, best, worst, whatever. 19th best offense in the league. They expected to be a top 10 offense. Jalen Hurts is coming off of an MVP performance in the Super Bowl. And really, the defense was good enough. The team was good enough. The quarterback really did not play well enough for this team to win this year.
The long standing another knock on Hurts, he can't throw the deep ball. Very poor accuracy. And when he left Bama, it was because he couldn't throw the deep ball, and they put Tua in, who was a freshman at the time, because he could throw the deep ball. And then, of course, we know he went to Oklahoma, and we know he's a Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP. But a lot of that is for 2 years the Eagles had the absolute best offensive line in the NFL, the biggest physically and the best. They're like 3 Pro Bowlers and another guy just missed out. Now they had injuries on the line this year. They're not in the playoffs. Don't think the offensive line is not important. But when you have Saquon Barkley, which he didn't have a great year because of the line. So if you can get a line again, you got the tools. And A.J. Brown's a nut job, but he's one of the best receivers in football. So they're not that far away from turning it back around.
Kyle Tucker, one of the best baseball players in the world, leaving Toronto, going to the Dodgers. $60 million a year, 4 years, $240 million guaranteed. The guy could hit 100 the rest of his life. He's going to get $240 million. By the way, I talked to Kevin Gosman last night at the first pitch banquet. Of course, Kevin with the Toronto Blue Jays and former LSU pitcher who lives in Baton Rouge, and they thought they were going to be able to re-sign him. The reports were coming out of Toronto a couple days ago that looked like Kyle Tucker was going to re-sign. They were going to give him $50 million a year. Well, Dodgers said, "Hold my beer," gave him $60 million a year, and now the Dodgers have the two highest paid players per season on their roster in Ohtani and Tucker. And the rich get richer, and the Dodgers will be back in the World Series.
Ronnie, you and I were born too early, man. We were born way too early. Not that you and I, neither one of us were great, but we were there. But we were born too early.
So the point shaving
Oh,
controversy, 30 something players, former players indicted, some current players indicted and charged. This is going to be an interesting situation. 5 players played at schools in Louisiana. Um, just a national point shaving ring, mostly small schools, where, they got reached out to online, on the internet, whatever. And hey, man, do this, do that, this money will be in your account. And you would think, Tommy, that if they found 30 something players, this is the tip of the iceberg, that there's other, this isn't in a vacuum. There's other things going on besides just this.
and the key thing you said is the small schools. Okay, you go to. I'm going to just use Southeastern over in Hammond as an example. These guys are either getting no NIL money or they getting 2-3 grand, maybe. Maybe the superstar is getting 5 grand, and I'm guessing there. Okay, but those are the guys where you can go say, hey, you want to make 20 grand, and it's going to get their attention. You go to these, the Power Four and the Group of Five schools, and some of them guys are, not going to do it. Although, there was a few that had, but most of it was a small school guy where you could say, hey, make sure you don't score 22 points tonight or whatever it is. But Ronnie, when I saw this story, I'm thinking, what is it, 5-6 years now when the sports world embraced gambling, when it used to be taboo. You didn't want to even talk about it. They would scold announcers on TV if they made a reference to something about a point spread or an over-under line or whatever. So you had to know that this was going to end up being the case once time went past that, because it's all about money. You can trace it all back to the almighty dollar bill, and that's what has happened here. And I agree with you. This is the tip of the iceberg. This thing is huge. We saw a point shaving scandal at Tulane in the late 80s, and they stopped basketball because of it. Now, I don't think anybody's going to stop basketball at this point, but that's the tipping point of everything that's happening from NIL is what caused it. Okay, if you went all the way back down to the root and you could dig deep enough, that's why these gamblers who they're in the world to make money, they figure out a way to do it.
Um, the the point shaving controversy is here to stay, because while apps and you can gamble everywhere and everybody communicate with AI and text messaging and email and all the things, people can stay anonymous. Some of these gamblers, they're like, "Wait, I didn't know who I was messing with. There was no contact. It was all you know almost like a setup type deal." But Tommy, and look, I know this is the smaller schools that are affected, but we just had a controversy with the NBA. So it's bigger numbers if you want a guy in a Power Four conference to mess up or make sure his team loses by a certain amount, but it's just extra zero, and it's still going to happen.
Well,
This issue is here to stay when it comes to gambling and fixing games and all that. This is scary stuff, because obviously we all know about it. If you're over 50 years old, you know about Tulane's issue and point shaving in the mid 80s, and they had got the death penalty, and how that affected the athletic department. And then we had something similar with Headache Smith and the gang over at Arizona State in the early mid 90s. And each time you think, okay, well, this is it. This is as bad as it can get. It's never going to happen again. Now we know. Here we are 40 years later from the Tulane controversy, and it's the same stuff.
And let's point out for those that may not totally know, the gambling fixing comes in poor performance or losing. It's like in horse racing. Horse racing is fixed where horses don't win. They don't turn the horse loose. The jockey knows how to control that, and then he runs fifth or sixth for 3 weeks. Then all of a sudden they find a spot where the odds are 8 to 1. They tell the jockey, turn it loose. We're going to bet $1 million to win, and then the horse wins by 10 lengths. Well, basketball, it's easier to control less output than it is to say, hey, we got to score 80 points tonight. It's easier to say, let's keep it under 60. And that's what happens. Or in the NBA, the individual player not scoring X amount of points. I mean, he can control that. He can pass the ball, and he can end up with 8 points instead of 18. But you can't necessarily, because of the defense, you can't necessarily end up with 28 if you're trying to get a top number.
National championship game is this Monday in football, 6:30 from Miami. The Hurricanes find themselves an 8 to 8.5 point dog at home against Indiana. I got to be honest with you, Tommy. I know Indiana looked fantastic against Oregon. All right, that was they looked Joe Burrow LSU esque against Oregon. Let's not kid ourselves and think that this Indiana offense, though, is the 2019 LSU Tigers. I
It's
mean,
not.
if you do a side by side comparison, it's not even close. But we want to give Indiana credit because no losses on the year, and they dominated Oregon in the semifinals. I mean, tremendously. That said, I have a hard time thinking Miami at home isn't going to play some of their best football. I mean, the history is there when teams get to the national championship game or Super Bowl. Look at the Rams win a Super Bowl in their home stadium. The LSU's played 4 national championship games at home, 3-1. I, and these ticket prices are through the roof. I mean, the average ticket price is like $4,000, highest it's ever been for national championship games. And a lot of that is because of the demand that Miami's able to say, look, we don't have to pay for hotels and airfare and meals and all that. I can sleep in my own bed. And yeah, so I'm going to overpay for tickets. And I know Indiana is going to, do whatever. It's a once in a lifetime potentially for them. But I don't know. Give me Miami in 8.5. At home. I don't know why and what that we think Indiana just because they had that one game with it. I like Miami at home, Tommy.
I know what you're saying. It comes down to the line of scrimmage. Miami doesn't blitz a lot. You know why? Because they got two defensive linemen who are going to be in the first round of the NFL draft. Okay, they got two guys that not one, two. Okay, so if Indiana can contain those two guys, they can win. I can tell you right now, I put a big bet on Indiana. I know that goes against the grain of what you think, but I read up and I was very careful about it. And I've read, and Miami's the real deal. Okay, if you really want to be objective, the line's probably too high. Okay, it maybe should be 5 or 6. Under that one score thing. So but I'm going to roll the dice. That's why it's called gambling. I'm going with Indiana, and we'll see what happens. And that'll be Monday night. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's one of the, like I said, for an 8.5 point spread, I definitely don't feel like I'm going to be watching a game where it's simply like, for example, last year, the national championship game, Ohio State and Notre Dame, I think was 8.5, Tommy. Okay.
I think you're right.
Because I ended up taking Ohio State, needed a late field goal to win the spread. I think it was like a touchdown line or something like 7.5, 8, something like that. And I ended up getting a late field goal that put them up, I think 9 or something like that, whatever. And ended up winning my bet. Ohio State has dominated early. Notre Dame came back in the second half, and then Ohio State held on and covered. But that game, I went into that game thinking Ohio State had this game. Like I think last year I felt like, well, Ohio State is the favorite in this one. This Ohio State's going to blow them out. Actually, I thought it didn't. They didn't. They covered, but they didn't blow them out. But this one, I don't know, man. I've seen the power of playing at home. Miami's battle tested, road tested, and I just I think there's a lot of credit to that, and they've got the quarterback who's one of the winningest quarterbacks in college football history, a guy who's been extremely battle tested. And I don't know. I think it's going to be an excellent game. Looking forward to it. Last year I went to the national championship game, Ohio State, Notre Dame in Atlanta. This time around, not going, but definitely am more fired up to watch this one than I was last year. I was excited to go, but this one I'm entertained. I really believe the dog has a chance to win it. You know,
Well, there's so many question marks and stories. I'm like you. I'm fired up to see what unfolds, what comes out of the box in the first half, in the second half. I mean, it's going to be a fun one. Ronnie, you and I have seen 8 million sporting events, and it's not often when you look forward to an event that's 3 days away or 2 day half days away. I'm looking forward to the game Monday night when normally it's like, okay, yeah, that's right. The game's tonight. I'll be watching. Now
we'll
I'm gonna make sure I'm watching.
we'll talk plenty more about it tomorrow on Sports Shorts Radio with Hunter McCann, Joel Davis. We'll see if we can get Derry Beckwith to call in, and we'll get Derry on for a segment to talk about this national championship game and LSU's portal signings. We'll be at Mr. Carter's Barbershop in Prairieville, right off Airline Highway. Excited about that. We hadn't been over there in a while. Mr. Carter's Barbershop will tell you all about it tomorrow on ESPN Radio, Lake Charles, Lafayette, and Baton Rouge. But they do a great job, and we look forward to seeing our friends over at Mr. Carter's Barbershop in Prairieville. Some basketball news. Tommy's 22-21 betting against the Pelicans. That's his record right now, a little more than halfway through the season. LSU's women's basketball have won 2 in a row in SEC play, including that big win against Texas, which got them back right, hopefully. LSU's men 0-4 in SEC play, Tommy. And another epic loss to Kentucky. Just put this game in the database of all the others. I mean, if you go back to the late 70s, all the way to now, LSU and Kentucky have played some epic games, particularly in the PMAC, but there's also been some epic collapses. And this is another one, up 18 in the second half, and LSU loses on a Hail Mary buzzer beater. And then find themselves 0-4. And by the way, Coach McMahon, the head coach of LSU, booed during pregame introductions in the PMAC. Just a little boo. Next time in the rest of the year, it's going to be a much louder boo.
Ronnie, I was in the PMAC. It was Mardi Gras night when they lost the 31-point lead to Kentucky. Dale Brown was the coach. I wasn't in the media. I was in the stands. And the other night, I'm watching the game with a couple of friends over at the Jefferson Lounge, and when they started chipping away, I said, if they get below 10 points, if they cut the lead to less than 10, Kentucky's going to win. Well, one of my friends bet me a drink. I said, I got Kentucky straight up. You take LSU. He had to buy me a cold one.
I mean, and look, the Christian Leitner type play at the end where they threw it the length of the court and a catch between the foul line and the 3-point line, a turn and shoot. So horribly played by LSU. The fact that an LSU center jumped to, he was fronting the Kentucky player, but yet he mistimed his jump. So unathletic is Robert Miller Jr. He's super goofy and clumsy. He looks like a fawn that just was born out of the mother, and it can't really quite stand and falls down, and it kind of it's goofy. Like that's Robert Miller Jr. Just watch him. And not only does he not understand spacing and timing, and he jumps awkwardly, but he jumps with 2 hands, Tommy. 2 hands. I'm
That's a
no
mistake.
physicist or anything like that, but I know enough to know when you're trying to jump as high as you possibly can, you jump with 1 hand, extend that hand, and all you got to do is get a fingertip on that ball and just deflect it.
And you win. And you
And you
win.
win the game. But instead, this goofball jumps with 2 hands, misses the ball completely. The guy catches it, turns, and no defender in his face makes the bucket. Just gross, absolutely gross. And I mean, and look, the PMAC was packed with the who's who. The Todd Graves of Raising Cane's was there. All the big boosters, all the big donors, good crowd. They ain't coming back. Everybody's ready for this to be over,
Well,
and you'll have a new coach.
they host Missouri tomorrow. You'll be able to introduce yourself to everybody in the crowd.
Yeah, don't talk on your cell phone too loud because everybody hear your conversation. All right, the NFL playoffs this weekend. Interesting game. It was snowy, blurry, windy. It was Chicago weather yesterday in Chicago. The Rams are traveling to Chicago this weekend in the divisional round. They are a 4-point favorite against the Bears, who have home field advantage, and they're the number one seed in the NFC. And oh, by the way, it is Chicago weather now. But you told me this is a history-making line point spread.
The first time in the history of the NFL in the divisional round that a road team was as much as a 4-point favorite. So when you do something for the first time in the NFL in this category, we're talking about gambling a lot of this show. It's significant, okay? And the wise guys are wise guys for a reason. They're wrong. They're correct more than they're wrong. Now, not always correct. So yeah, that'll be the fourth game. That'll be the second game on Sunday. The first three games, the two Saturday and the early one Sunday, the home team's all favored. But the biggest line is 7, Seahawks over the 49ers. 49ers without Kittle makes a difference.
The 49ers without Kittle makes a huge difference. It's kind of like the Chiefs, without Kelsey. I mean,
A productive Kelsey, yeah.
yeah. I mean that. Speaking of the Chiefs and Kelsey, is Kelsey officially announced if he's retiring or not?
He said he was going to take some time to think about it. It's the last thing I saw, and that was like last week. So I don't know if anything's come out since, and right now the NFL's in that thing like they announced Harbaugh as the coach of the Giants, but let's not make any announcements the rest of the weekend. Let's let the focus be the 4 games.
Well, let's talk a little bit. The portal is officially closed, Tommy. I'm trying to get back to my screen here.
It's
The
like 5 o'clock
portal is
today. It closes, something like that. I don't know.
yeah, the portal is closing up. Although if you're in the national championship game, you have two
You got
weeks.
5 more days. Yeah,
You know,
5 days. You get 5 extra days.
I thought they had 2 weeks from the national championship game.
I
No.
think you got 5 days after today if you played if you're playing in the national championship game. I think you got 5 days after the game. We can double check that and mention it on radio tomorrow.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's definitely they get some extra time after the
Right. Yeah,
national
that's
championship.
true. Yeah.
They get some extra time there. It's amazing how you go from the outhouse to the White House. LSU didn't have any quarterbacks a week ago. We're pressing the panic button, and now folks are figuring out, well, how are we going to manage all three? The good news is they got Levitt. We know that. We got the transfer 5-star from USC, who's got 4 years of eligibility left. And then you've got the Elon quarterback coming in. So all of a sudden now you got some depth. You got to, you'll sign some others as well. And, you know, uh, after after the spring, who knows, what might happen. So very interesting times. But the good news is that even though it was at the 11th hour, Lane Kiffin made it happen.
And
He
Levitt
got
won't participate in spring practice. So that's going to give you a good chance to get an accurate reading on the other two guys. And Ronnie, I'll say it right now, January 16th, LSU wins the SEC in football next year.
wow. You're that impressed with what they did in the portal, huh?
Yes, and the coaching staff, what Lane Kiffin's done more in 45 days than Kelly did in 4 years. As far as you check the boxes of good stuff. I'm very impressed, and I'm not impressed easily, but I'm very impressed.
All right, we'll chat more about it tomorrow. Sports Church Radio, ESPN Radio, Lafayette, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge. Myself, Tommy Christ, and Hunter McCann will be live at Mr. Carter's Barbershop in Prairieville. We'll also have some special guests on the air as well. So we will definitely see you there. Or listen. Hopefully you can check us out, listen to us. We'll talk to you tomorrow, TK. Tell us about Tremonti's as we get out of here.
Yeah, load up for the weekend with your meat, the seafood, the side dishes, all your bourbons and wines, everything you need. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. You can order online at tremontis.com. They can cater for you. We're going to have a Super Bowl party. They can cater it. Doing anything like that, they can cater. Office party. You want an office guy. You want to feed everybody in the office one day. Just get with Tremonti's and they will take care of that for you. Lunch special today, fried catfish, popular crawfish etouffee. It's a go-to. Trust me. All right, as Ronnie said, don't forget radio tomorrow morning, 10 to 12, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Lake Charles. And like and share this show, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X. That helps everybody. On behalf of Ronnie Rants, I'm Tommy Christ saying have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend, everyone.